Hello students, how are you? My name is Charles Longo. Welcome to Mlaw211 Advanced Company Law. Today we'll be looking at study unit 7 and 8. My contact details is clongo84@gmail.com. My WhatsApp details it's 063-161-7830. Consultation hours it's Tuesdays and Thursdays at 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. To access this recording, please go to efundi and the Dropbox. It will be available once we are done. I will upload it, and I'm also gonna include the PDF for those that don't like the voice pop. Study Unit 7, Accounts and Transparency. I would like you guys to use your study guides to go through the study units before I can actually articulate study outcomes. So for now, there are prescribed books that you actually need to go and look at. They are also listed in the study guides. And then in this section, we're only going to focus on three main components, three major parts, which is company secretary, auditor, and transparency of financial reporting. We'll be dealing with study unit 7. Then we're going to actually a short self-evaluation activity in study unit 8. Study outcomes. After completing this study unit, you should be able to explain which company should appoint a company secretary, explain the appointment, function, and responsibility of a company secretary, discuss the requirements for the appointment and resignation of a director. This you can actually find it in study unit 2, which we've already actually done already in class. So I would like you guys just to go back and revisit it to see exactly what function a director can actually do. And I want you guys to also explain and discuss the appointment, function, duties, and responsibilities on audit. And then from there, I also want you guys to explain which companies are subject to an auditor, explain the independent review and the role of the independent accounting profession, discuss the process of appointing of an auditor, and describe the independence of an auditor. Then the last part which we'll be dealing with is writing notes for financial reporting, right? So I'm going to explain these things, actually the outcomes, more in details. For instance, in the exam, I won't ask you exactly like just explain the companies that should appoint a secretary. It goes hand in hand exactly with explain also the company that are subject to an auditor. So you might find that we just mix them up. The two most important office barriers who control this is the company secretary and auditor. When we look at study unit 7, the two most people that you actually have to look at is the company secretary and the auditor. The concept of an office is defined in section 1 of the act as any managing director or any managing director, manager or secretary. Therefore, is in other words, wherever reference is made to a director or office of a company, the secretary is included. In the prescribed learning material in the act, you will come across numerous instances where the reference is made to a director or office of the company. Remember that the office includes the secretary of the company. The company secretary. When you study section 84 to 89, right? You should also consider these following questions while you're studying, while you're looking at these outcomes, for you to have a better understanding. Which company must appoint a company secretary? Who does not qualify for the appointment, which is on section 84? Which records must be kept? Can a legal entity be appointed as a secretary? What do the duties of a company secretary entails? You should all know that, so that when we're writing an exam, you actually have the feel and the understanding that we have gone through this chapter. List the duties of a secretary of a company. For which company is not obligated to appoint a secretary? Under which circumstances may the general meeting of shareholders of a company intervene with the powers of the board of directors? So every time when you're dealing with the secretary, these are the type of questions that you need to ask yourself. As you study these outcomes, I want you guys actually to go through these questions so that you have a better understanding of what the secretary is. Now let's talk about the auditor, right? You're a student, you have chosen to follow the CA route or the FA route, right? This is the course that you chose because you plan to enter the auditor's profession, right? So the role and function of an auditor is of a big importance because the authority, the economy, the public relies upon the integrity and professionalism of an auditor. In this course, we won't be focusing on the duties and responsibility of the auditor in details. I'll ask your lecturer for audit to actually go through thoroughly with you exactly when he's explaining the processes in audit. This will just be covered easywhere else, but for now, we will only be studying the company's responsibilities as well as the auditor's most important responsibilities, namely the auditing and financial records. When studying, also look at the appointment requirements. Study section 90 for the appointment requirements in section 93 to 7 for the general instruction with regards to appointment of an auditor. I also want you guys to look at the resignation and vacancy in section 91. Study section 91 and make a summary of a company's responsibility with regards to the resignation and vacancy of or for auditors. Rotation of auditors. Also look at it. You should ask questions like how long may an auditor serve? What happens in case of a resignation in terms during the term? So you need to ask yourself what happens in the case of the auditor resigns during the term. Collective auditor's position. What are the duties of an auditor? This is section 93, sorry. Study this section and make a list. The Auditing Professional Act also includes instruction duties, especially with regards to audit reports, irregularities, and restriction on liabilities. This will be discussed more details during our content session, but now because of COVID-19, I'm only going to summarize everything. Okay. Also look at the audit committee. The committee must be chosen at an annual general meeting and must have at least 3 members. Subsidiary positions are different. Members must be directors of the company who meet the requirements as defined by the minister. Stand independent on a daily management operation. Doesn't do meaningful business with the company as a client or a supplier. Isn't related to the person. So the duties of the committee are listed in subsection 7. Make a list of these. Ask yourself the other questions like name the person who are disqualified for appointment of an audit of a company. Ask yourself questions like explain the procedures that must be followed for a company to decide not to reappoint an audit that was appointed at the previous annual general meeting of the company. Name the duties of an auditor as imposed on him or her in the Company Act. Explain the duties of an auditor if he or she encounters a material irregularity in the conduct of the affairs of the company. You also need to explain these things so that you should be able to understand these outcomes. Now let's look at our last outcome, which is writing notes on financial reporting. You must know that transparency in financial reporting is needed. A general instruction, the keeping of financial records of transaction reporting, etc. is discussed in details in the recourse. A few, however, mentioned here. Section 12 establishes the necessity of recording the keeping of financial records of transaction reporting, etc. is discussed in details in the recourse. A few aspects are, however, mentioned here. Section 24 establishes the necessity of records must be kept in writing and must be kept in a period of 7 years according to the section 24(3). A company must also keep the following: a copy of a memorandum and its amendment, as well as the rules made in terms of section 12. Register of director that has to comply with the prescribed contact requirement. Copies of annual reports, financial statements of the past 7 years, as well as records of 7 years. Notice of meetings as well as minutes. Copies of all notes to all shareholders. Notes and minutes of board meetings or board committees, as well as audit committees. Security shares register. All records register must be kept at a registrar's office or another accessible premises. All members that have a beneficial interest have access to their records. So now you need to also look at the annual financial statements. Ask yourself questions like, when is the financial year? When are the last financial years? May the date be changed. When does the financial year end? The last day falls on a Sunday or a public holiday. Accounting records section 28. Financial statements section 29. These instructions are discussed in details. Here I've just listed, I've just summarized a few things. I haven't done everything, so I would like you guys to go back in the books and actually go through everything. Study guide and your prescribed scope. But here I've just summarized the company secretary, right? The duties of a company secretary. You see exactly which companies exactly need to have a secretary. I've just listed them there. It's a public company, state-owned, private, personal liability, and non-profit company. If you don't know them, you can go back to the previous study units that we have done for you to understand, right? Next, with the auditors, again, I included the auditors committee. It's just a summary exactly to show you exactly what answers I'll be looking for when you guys are writing the test and writing the exam, right? You must know these by heart. You must know them. You should write them in your heart, or else the test will show you something else. All right. The appointment of an audit. What must happen? Which board must the person be from? Okay, these are just a few notes exactly which I've just included here. The transparency of financial reporting, I've just included just a few notes which you can actually go through on your own, because I've actually mentioned everything when I was dealing with the outcomes. Alright, now study unit 8. After studying, you should be able to answer the following question. Explain your understanding under the following terms: minority shareholders, majority shareholders, whistleblower, right? So what is a minority shareholder? Is a shareholder who owns less than 50% of a company shares and does not have voting rights. Neither can he or she single-handedly elect a directors of a company. A minority shareholder does not have power. A majority shareholder is a shareholder who owns and controls most of the company shares, must own 50% of the company, and is more powerful than all the shareholders combined together. Just like Mark Zuckerberg, he was powerful before he saw. A whistleblower. What is a whistleblower? A whistleblower is a person who exposes secretive information or activity to a person or organization regarded as deemed illegal, unethical, or immoral activity. So these are the definition of the three things. And then this brings us to the end of our section, end of our class. If you guys have got any questions, you can actually email me, you can text me, you can ask me now. And always remember, every battle is won before it's fought. So before you could actually pass your exam and your test before you actually go and write. Once you just focus and pay attention, everything will go as smoothly as you want them. Every battle is won